Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator, bringing you this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting in their careers, in transition, or possibly feeling stuck. Giving them access to stories from people who have already been established in their careers so that they may learn or be inspired by these stories and maybe find new ways forward. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing my friend Falon Velez, who is the CEO and founder of TeachGeek. Hi, Falon.
Hi, how are you, Kathy? Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Very excited to have you. And Falon and I met through a mutual friend at a networking group and just really clicked. And then she helped me with my business. And then we worked on a video project together. So anyway, we've done a lot of fun things together. And she's got a very interesting story and a very interesting business. So, but before we get into what your business is, Falon, and how did I get here, I always like to start with the icebreaker questions, which are, where did you grow up? How many siblings do you have? And where are you in the birth order? And how do you think that all influenced you as a person?
So I was born in New York. We lived in Manhattan about 12 years. And then by the time I was probably going into middle school, we moved to South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I pretty much grew up there until I was about 18. And I think that part of growing up is where your adulthood is. So I would like to mention that I was also raised to some degree in LA because by the time I was 18 years old, I moved out and I spent 6 years there. And I would say my development years as an adult were probably spent there. So a little bit of New York, Florida, and LA.
Ah,
yeah.
All over the geography. All in major cities, sounds like.
I know. I don't even know how that happened. Now I want to just live in like a small town in Costa Rica.
Which is where we did your video, right?
Yeah, that's right. That is. Actually, no, we did our video in Puerto Rico, but I do have a Costa Rica video that looks similar in fashion in terms of what we did and stuff. So maybe that brought some memories back.
Yeah, just a tropical place. That's what I was thinking.
That's right.
Well, so talk about your sisters and your family growing up.
The probably more unique parts of being the oldest in my family is I was the firstborn of all of the siblings' kids, right? So my mom and her sisters and brothers, along with my father on his side and his sisters and brothers, I was technically on both sides the oldest child in the family, not only the oldest sibling. So I've had a lot of little ones to watch over in the last 30 years of my life.
Wow, that does put an extra dose of responsibility on you.
Yeah, and my mom tries to tell me that that's why she was so hard on me, but she's like, "Well, you weren't just the oldest in your family; you were the oldest in your entire generation of young cousins." And I was like, "Okay, Mom," but so yeah, that actually did have some bearing. I was always the big sister for pretty much most of my cousins growing up. But the funny part on the other spectrum, because we're talking about influences, I'm probably one of the youngest out of all my friends. And I still feel like I'm the oldest out of everyone. So I feel like that had a huge influence because I was always giving free therapy advice away my entire life, whether it was to my sisters and my cousins or my friends. And it really influenced me to be a better person. With that, there's good and bad, right? So I think one of the things that I lack, one of the traits I lack on is probably patience, and I'm working on it. But when you've got so many little ones and friends that are supposed to be older than you and so on and so forth, and you're always kind of the one making decisions and kind of giving advice, I guess your patience runs thin. And I'm also an Aries, so that's a major trait for Aries. So I try to be patient and I try to make the right choices. But being the oldest has its what's the right word? It's downside, I guess. And so then the other thing that might come with it is, oh, you're always telling me what to do. And it's like, well, I was kind of put in that position. So I didn't really want to be in here, but here I am. So I think, even though it's great to be able to give your your younger siblings and friends or whatever a lot of great advice. Sometimes when they don't like the advice or they think you're being too, I guess you're giving too much more than what they asked for, then that becomes a problem and you get some sibling rivalry, right? So
Yeah, a little bit of pushback about, I just wanted a sister here. I didn't want mom.
right. And I'm like, hey, I wanted a friend, but here we are.
Yeah,
So
but I'm oldest and I was put in charge. So,
yeah,
so
but
what?
it wasn't too bad. Honestly, I really enjoyed it because I think watching my sisters who are amazing, and Kathy, we're friends. I've told you before, I absolutely love them. So watching them grow up and they both became probably better than me is great. And I feel like that has a lot to do with my choices and helping them through some situations that, when you're young, you just don't think through. So being
Yeah,
the oldest has its advantages and disadvantages.
yeah. What's the age difference?
So from oldest, which is me, to youngest, I'm 3 years between me and Nicole, which I feel like my family so well. And then there's almost 10 years between me and Michelle, which is it's complicated. She's technically the baby in our family, but then
Mhm.
my mother and father, my real father, my biological father, got divorced, and then he had an oops later on in life, and so she's now 18. So she's technically the baby, but they didn't grow up together. So Erica, who's my baby sister, is actually the oldest in her family, which is interesting. So she has a
And
baby.
oldest, who's now the youngest.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
So she has a baby
yeah,
sister, which is not technically related to me because her mom now remarried. So yeah,
yeah. Wow.
kind of funny how that all
So,
works out.
yeah, with your sisters growing up, did you play sports? I think with an age difference like 10 years, you were quite a bit older. You probably didn't play sports together.
Me and
Or did
Nicole
you play
did.
musical instruments or
Yeah, me and Nicole did because we're like
3 years?
2.5 years apart because my birthday's in April and hers is in February. So by the time she goes into the second, or I guess into the third year, I'm still a little bit behind. So yeah, no, I guess that would make us just under 3 years. I'm sorry. So we actually did get to run together in high school. And then I think for a brief moment, she might have been in like a soccer class of mine, but yeah, we were always 3 years apart. So she was in, maybe freshman or sophomore while I was in senior. To answer that question, but I was a runner growing up. I'm still a runner. I love running. And I snowboard now pretty much all season long. I get a pass. So I'm a big snowboarder. I used to be a skier, but I'm a much more avid snowboarder because I live here now. So those are the
Yeah.
two big sports I would say I play, running
Okay.
and I guess that's considered a sport, right? Running.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I skydive. I don't know if you consider that a sport. Some do. A lot of people. I mean, it's an adrenaline sport, but so yeah, that's my favorite
Well,
adrenaline
that
sport.
kind of leads me to the next question on a scale of 1 to 5 taking risks. Where are you on that scale? One being couch potato and 5 being skydiver, I guess. Or are you a 7 or 10?
um, it's funny when I saw that question come up, I thought about it and I was like, it's funny because I am a risk taker in some ways. And then if you talk to other people, they're like, oh, no, no, she's like the kind of person who, she's got to make sure it all works out before diving into a career. And a lot of people who know me would say that. But then the other people would say, well, she took a risk by leaving her full-time job that was paying a good job to become an entrepreneur. So I don't know. I'm a big risk taker when it comes to adrenaline. I have no fear. I mean, that's a lie, Kathy, right? We all have fear, but I try not to, before I throw myself out of the plane, I'm just like, okay, here we go, another day. But I do have an adrenaline rush. So I guess I enjoy that risk taking. But generally I like to outweigh the odds a little bit. So, yeah, if it's not going to kill me, I might give it a shot.
Of course, some might think skydiving is going to kill you, then they won't give it a shot. But
You know
okay,
what's
so we'll
funny?
call. Should we call you a 5? Can you give me a
We'll
number
give
or
yeah, we'll give myself between a 4.5 and a 5. Yeah.
a 4.5 and a 5? Okay, and then same scale 1 to 5. Where are you on the fun meter?
These days I say between a 3 and a 4. I used to be a 5, but I don't know. As I get older, I'm my fun is kind of at home.
Yeah. Well, these days with us being, somewhat quarantined or in the stay home mandate, right? We're finding a lot of fun at home.
Yeah.
Netflix is what our fun is. So,
Yeah. And I'm a
well,
gamer, so I don't know how much fun that is for everyone, but for me, I'm into it.
so yeah, that's also a home thing too, right? That you can do at home.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about your business, TeachGeek, and how you founded that. And then we'll get into how did I get here?
I probably started it technically, and I say technically because TeachGeek itself has only been around for almost 6 years this year. Um, but
Congratulations.
but I thank you. But I've been doing this for probably over 10 years, if you count from the time that I started at Apple, which is kind of where I started, thinking about this idea. And I'm sure you have heard me say this, so I apologize. You have to hear this story again. But I used to work at the Genius Bar, work fixing electronics. And then, I don't know if you remember when they did one-to-ones, but you would come into the store and they would teach you how to use whatever you asked on an Apple product that was an Apple product. So if you want to learn like iMovie, for example, you could for an hour. And then there was the Genius Bar where you got things fixed. Oh, my computer's not working, or my iPhone's, not working. So I worked there for probably almost 4 years. And during that time, I had a lot of questions about whether or not I could come to the home as an IT person to help them with some other issues, mostly because I think a lot of the people there, and I will say Apple's amazing at hiring people who can be a geek, but also speak the layman's terms. But when you're working in a environment where there's a lot of, guys, and most of them are the geniuses at the bar, as patient as they can be, they're so smart that they don't know how to deal with you sometimes. And it's not technically their fault. They're doing their best, but they have about 15 to 20 minutes to fix your issue. And a lot of times they don't have time for the questions. So I was known to be the question person. She'll explain it and just talk to her. And so,
So
my
you could
time,
relate to people.
yeah, my time on the bar when it was out there, it was really spent explaining and teaching versus me going in the back. When I was in the back, I had my headphones on and I was fixing and no one would speak to me. So it was very interesting. And during that time, people would ask me, hey, here's my card. I would love for you to come to my house and help me. And I would have to refer them to what was called the Apple Consultants Network back then. Now, again, a lot of these people that were doing it were guys. And I think, when it comes to teaching, especially in the technology world, men are already inferior to not wanting to say, oh, I'm wrong, or I don't know. But when you're in their house, they're totally different. Oh, I don't know this, I don't know that, help me. So I think that there's this fear around what they can say and what they can't say. And even the women at the bar, even though they were like, I don't know, I think everybody's a little afraid to just let loose and say, look, I don't understand. So when you're thinking about somebody being the privacy of your own home, you can imagine the difference there, right? And a consultant isn't really there to teach as much as they are to kind of help you and fix. So when I did call some of the consultants on the network, it was mostly that like they were fixing stuff. So I was like, there's a big demand for this. There's not a lot of people who do that. And there's certainly not a lot of people who are working for either Apple or Windows, right? So if you go on the Apple Consultants Network, even now, they will only work with you if you have an Apple product. But if you have a Windows computer and an iPhone, which is the case with you, Kathy, you're probably not going to get the help that you would get with TeachGeek. So that's kind of how it started. Me just going into people's houses. I quit Apple because you're not supposed to be working as an employee for the company and doing that on the side. Obviously, it's a conflict of interest. So I let my manager know and I left. And luckily, a lot of the people that I was there working with were really nice. And they actually referred a few clients my way. And then next thing you know, I was so busy, I had to hire 2 other people. And here we are, 6 years in, 10 years in my career. And we're just basically going around the nation helping people understand technology in the home.
Well, yeah, and you're in 3 states, right? You're in New York and Florida and
Yep,
Colorado?
all three, and we're working on a fourth right now, hopefully in Texas and in Austin, and looking to open up a branch there. One of my techs is moving, so we're about to hire a third person in Florida, and yeah, we're expanding. And now we work with businesses too. Before, for many years, we just kind of focused on the residential sector. But with that came those business people who own many businesses, and they're very, very intelligent, but not very tech savvy. So now we're working with people who, as you know, we work in the business world that, don't really understand how to use a CRM or a project management tool. And it's very similar to the format as teaching somebody who wants to learn iMovie or understand how to, update their computers. So yeah, we're kind of working in both realms now.
Always expanding and growing, you are.
I try.
Well, let's talk now about how did I get here?
Okay.
When you were a young person, were you always interested in technology, or did you want to be an entrepreneur and own your own company, or how did you get started?
I never really thought about being an entrepreneur, but I always have been a gamer and a techie from childhood. My mom bought
Okay.
me a Game Boy. I think by the I want to. She claims it was like 2 years old, but come on, I'm like, Mom, it wasn't two. But now I see these 2 year olds, and I'm like, maybe I was, but I probably was about 3 or 4 when I got my first one that I can remember, and I was addicted. It wasn't just the gaming part of it; it was just the whole technology of it, the buttons and how the disc went in and the power and how to charge it. And if it broke, I had to fix it because my parents, they were middle class and they were doing the best they could to give me that thing to begin with. And I really appreciated that. And so if it broke, I had to fix it. And it was easy. It was like, oh, I got to take this apart. It wasn't even a challenge. It was more like I enjoyed the challenge. It was like, let's see what I can do here. So yeah, I've always been into fixing electronics and playing games and figuring out how things work, whether it's a computer or a remote control. It was just something I like to do in the house. It was my hobby. So that kind of followed through my entire life. And when I was working in Hollywood for a while as an actress, which was where I began my first dream job, even then, when I was working at MTV, they would ask me tech questions. And I was like, I'm not here for a technology job. I'm here to be an actress or a producer. So even back then, that's when I learned the beginning of iMovie, actually, Kathy, which we've worked on. So it was kind of behind the scenes and I loved it even then. So yeah, it kind of followed me always in the background.
So you were combining the technology with your kind of producing
That's when I
or
became a producer.
love for movies.
Yeah, that's when I started
Well,
producing because I really love that part of it, editing and filming and writing. So,
very cool. I knew about you're fixing things in your technology, and there might have been some hacking in there, which you conveniently left out. But I didn't know about this actress thing. So tell us about acting and you went to Hollywood for that?
Yeah, I don't usually tell people this. This is my like first life, as they say. I've had many, and I usually keep it under wraps. But I guess once in a while it comes out, and so here we go. I was very young when I watched My Girl, and it was a movie with Anna Kalimsky, who I still think is an amazing actress. She's part of Veep now, but anyway, I just fell in love with her character and the way that she just presented herself. And then she played a different movie and completely different character. And I thought, man, this girl's really good at acting. I want to be an actress when I grow up. And what I saw back then was people being creative, right? People who were taking a role. Maybe they didn't experience that particular thing, but they were using their experiences to be able to turn into something else, a creative outlet, so to speak, just like writing or music and telling a story. Well, when I got to Hollywood at 18, I had a really good time for a while. I was on Disney and a few other things. But what I hated was that I was typecasted. I've always looked a little bit younger than my age, but I've always acted a little bit older and to some degree. Sometimes I'm immature, but most of the time I'm way too mature. And back then I was way too mature. Now I'm a little bit more, I don't care so much. I'm just going to go with it. But so I was a little bit taken back by some of the jobs I was getting. I was getting like the younger versions of things. And I was like, I want to do like the more dark comedies. And so I wasn't really getting casted for that. And so the typecasting thing is true. I was a little bit small. So they put me on Disney and Nickelodeon. I was like, hello, I'm like 19 at this point. um,
And that's an age when you're sensitive about that. You do want to look older.
yeah, right. You want to be older when you're, and now I'm like, please take me back to that.
Yeah.
I want to be
Keep
21
those
again.
youthful genes.
But so I had a hard time not always getting the roles I wanted, but also what I thought what acting was writing, but it's not writing. The writer is the writer, director's director, and you're the actress. So I switched from that and I started getting behind the scenes, and that's when I really enjoyed being an actress, quote unquote, because what I was trying to do was I was trying to create. So I was writing a lot and I love reading. So I was reading and writing, and I finally started getting into production. And that's when, again, I fell into the technology. And that's when I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to edit what people are doing. I want to be a part of the breakthrough. I want to be a part of the story more than I do in front of the camera. Although I interview well and, I guess the camera and I get along well, it really wasn't my super passion. So once I got into that, I realized that, again, there goes the technology knocking on the door. So that was my first life.
So it started with technology, then turned into acting, and then technology just kept creeping in.
It
there.
always seems to find
then,
its way. In fact,
yeah.
then I left Apple and I thought, I'm going to go back to school. I've always been a straight A student, probably the oldest, right? Overachiever or whatever. And so I was definitely the girl in school that was like, well, I got to get good grades because I'm not going to be able to go out with you girls tonight. Otherwise, if my mom sees a B or a C, I'm in trouble. So I always kind of was in that education route and I enjoyed it. I like reading. So, and I like writing. I like math. And I went to school for anthropology. Again, nothing to do with technology. I thought, oh man, I'm going to go out in the jungle and get away from people and be with other people that are, on another level of thinking and all of that. So I did that. And then I found the technology again because the tech age is literally happening as I'm growing up. And you just see these people who you think, oh, these people don't use technology. They're living this islandly life. No way. These kids same thing out there in the jungles. They have their phones and their iPads. And, I saw an interaction with people that was changing. It wasn't anymore, oh, I'm going to, pick up a Razr flip phone. Now you have a phone that's a computer, and that computer can do amazing things. So after I graduated for anthropology, there was a movement going on about, what was going on with the Snapchat world and the Instagram world and what that was doing to the younger generations versus older. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to make this business and I'm going to teach people and I'm going to become a professor of technology. And during that time, I'm going to document everything I notice. I'm going to document the people and the way that they change, the way that behaviors on their phones change. Now we have acronyms for everything. Everything is faster and everything is shorter. And somehow the files are bigger, even though they're smaller. So, there's all these weird dynamics. The smaller the product, the more expensive. Back in the day, it was the bigger the product, the more expensive. So you see all these changes. And from an anthropological standpoint, I think I fused, again, technology into what are we doing today? How are humans changing? I mean, there's already people who have an eyeball that's completely computerized, right? Or now you can be born without a hand, no big deal. We can 3D print one. So to watch these changes between technology and human nature has been really interesting for me. So again, here we go, technology following me. So I stuck with it.
Sounds like it was kind of in your I want to say your DNA maybe. And then you've kind of fought against it, pushed it away, but then it keeps coming back.
I never really fought it. I just didn't think that my skills and my, I didn't think it was that serious, right? I thought, oh, this is just something I've been doing since I was a child. I never thought it was like a gift. I never even saw it as a talent. I just thought it was what most people would call it. I was a geek, and that's normal, right? Not everybody who's a geek makes a career out of it. But some people do. And so I think it's not that I was pushing it away. I have a lot of different hobbies and things I like to do. And I just thought that
Mm.
my career maybe would be a little different. So to answer your question about whether or not I was going to be an entrepreneur, oh no, I thought when I was a child I was going to be an actress and a director, and then I thought I was going to be an anthropologist, trying to follow some really strong anthropologists out there. But no, I became a technologist, which I love, so I'm okay with it.
Well, that's cool because it sounds like you were exploring things different and outside of what you had been experiencing, things you had dreamed about or really wanted to do. And then you got to do that. But then you also had this innate gift of the technology, and you didn't really have to go to school for it. It just, you're able to be that geek and be an expert.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I guess it's that sometimes you can't recognize when it's a core competency, or a gift, right? You don't recognize it in yourself, but other people recognize it in you.
Yeah, I actually, and thank you for that. I didn't. I Until I started the business, I didn't. I knew I was tech savvy, but everyone has their strengths and everyone has their weaknesses. I'm not the greatest at math and accounting. You can ask my boyfriend. but but I didn't think of technology and being a nerd as a gift. I didn't. And it was only until my clients started saying, "You have no idea, it is a gift." And I think what they're trying to say is that it's not that I have this special tech gift. It's just that I have a really good troubleshooting gift, right? If you give me anything that's technologically based and there's a problem, I'm going to find a solution. Even if it's like, what do they call it? Like a
Mm-hmm.
ghetto rig. Like, maybe we could just do it this way. It's not quite what we're hoping for, but I will figure out what I like to call integrations, right? Like, you know what? Maybe we need to use another tool to make that work. And so I think if there's a gift there, it's honestly being a really good troubleshooter and then being able to understand your problem and come up with a place or come from a good place of caring and wanting to see you not be frustrated and then turning that into something that works. So if that's a gift, sure. And then being an anthropologist is so nice to be able to know that in the back of my mind, I have this knowledge of how people work and how their brain works and how their body works and how their feelings work. And so to be an entrepreneur in this sector is really powerful because it's part of our DNA now. Like you said, every kid growing up, by the time they're 1, they know what a phone is. My niece is 2 and she picks up the phone. Okay, now what would have looked like a very small thin brick back then, okay, is now looking like, hello, I'm on the phone. And she knows what that means. She knows that through this technology I can communicate to someone else. She knows how to call me on FaceTime. I mean, she's 2.5 and I would never have thought that would be a thing, but it's happening. So yeah, I think it is part of everyone's DNA, but I think again my gift might be, hey, you know what? I really like to see something, I like to fix it and get a solution for the problem.
Yeah. So, did you have any formal training in technology then, or did you have any
Never,
college
never. And
courses
in
on it,
fact,
or
I
high school?
wanted to go to school when I
Yeah.
was 18. I didn't want to go to Hollywood right away because you know how you're taught in this country. Oh, you got to go to school right away. And I had already decided to take my first trip to Europe. And when I took my first trip there, it's different. It's completely different. They're so like, you know what? You're 18 years old. You don't need to go to school right now. You're too young to know what you want. Why don't you go travel the world and see what's out there and what careers may, you know, make you feel good or make it seem like it's something you'll be interested. And a lot of the parents say go out and then come back and go to school years later, or maybe, within the next 2 years. Anyway, so I thought I'm going to go to school for technology, right? We discussed, it's kind of following me. And, well, I kind of fell asleep. I couldn't do it. I was like, what are they teaching? This is antiquated. I'm like, well, I don't need to know how to program. Like, so I was very uninterested very quickly because I thought I was going to go in
Wow.
there. Oops, sorry. I thought I was going to go into class learning about engineering and just kind of getting into the nitty gritty part of technology, maybe fixing and, programming. But you can't get to that stuff until you've pretty much finished the introductory courses, which I was just like, this is not going to work out. um,
Yeah.
so I don't think I technically had any training until I got to Apple. So I was about 24, 25. And that was when I first got my first certificates, learning the Apple products and programs and fixing things and opening phones and computers. Then I got a Windows certificate because I was like, if I have an Apple, I might as well get Windows. And so I started taking the online courses for Windows. But other than um, what we're doing here with our clients, I don't have any real formal training. Just training myself and knowing that I need to
Yeah.
keep up to date with the technology. Now, if there is like a system that I need to know, I'll be the first one to sit with any of the trainers that are part of the company and do like a tutorial or online training. But formal, like other than certificates, I would say that that's probably the most formal training I've had.
What would you recommend then for maybe a young person starting out? If they're interested in technology, are they already past some of the introductory stuff then, or how does one get into it
That's a
now?
good question, Kathy. One of the things that I tell our students in our 3D printing, which I didn't mention, but that's my fourth life, right? TeachGeek Academy, where we teach I would say probably 8 to 12-year-olds now, 13, how to do CAD, which is a computer assisted design engineering program. Anyway, I tell them that they should start now if they're interested, if they already love it and they know that this is what they want to do, which might change. There's nothing wrong with getting those classes for college now, because if I had done that, I could have gotten rid of all those introductory classes. And then as soon as I hit 18 or 17, I could have jump started, and then got right into the fun stuff, right? You can't really take those more advanced engineering classes or programming or coding or whatever, whether it's computer design or the technical aspect, until you get those classes out of the way. So if you're a real nerd or geek like me, take it while you're in high school and get those credits so that when you get out of school, you're going to have those background credits so you can dive right into the fun stuff. The other thing I would say is if they are really interested, there's so many programs now that weren't when I was a kid that didn't exist. Like there was no 3D printing in CAD for 8-year-olds. I would say if you're really interested and it really, tickles your, I don't know what the right word is, like you're fancy,
Fancy.
then I would say take one of those classes, go to those summer camps. I mean, they have coding everywhere now. You know, um, they've got building blocks, they've got engineering courses. And if you really like it, then there's probably a chance you're going to end up in that world. And that's great. Anyway, it's a great thing to have, is what I'm getting at. Because no matter what, when you go for a job, I don't care what job you have been involved with or where you're going, anything that says, hey, listen, I've worked on technology, guaranteed they're going to look at you and say, you know what, we can always use somebody who knows a little more technology than we do, right? So it's
Yeah.
not going to hurt you
Yeah.
in any way.
Well, and when I think about 3D printing, I mean, that's such a big part of the future. I'm reading this book now called The Future is Faster Than You Think. And they're talking about the convergence of technology, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, robotics. But the 3D printing thing is huge. And so now I'm thinking if 8 and 12-year-olds are learning this, they have such a career path that they could get started on right out of high school, even. I mean, would you even have to go to college?
You don't have to go to college to do 3D printing or own a 3D printer or anything like that. But if you want to be in that world and you want to succeed and you want to get a really good paying engineering job, because most people who are learning CAD want to be an engineer. If they don't want to be an engineer, they want to be a designer, right? An architect or movies or editing. Either way, you don't need to have that stuff up until you get to the engineers. You have to have an engineering degree to become any kind of engineer.
Okay.
You have to have a designing degree if you want to be a graphic designer or a designer in that world. But if you wanted to, say, come up with your own idea and 3D print that, it helps to have those classes because it'll give you some knowledge. But honestly, if you just get yourself a 3D printer and you have the patience, like I said, everything is virtual now. You can go online and Google how do I 3D print on this particular 3D printer? And you'll find loads worth of free videos out there to teach yourself, which is kind of the avenue I took if you think about it. So
Yeah. Well, how feasible is it for a regular person to own a
oh,
3D
you can
printer?
buy them for less than $100 nowadays. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you
What?
they're the best 3D printers on the market, but it'll get what you need done. It'll be small, but for somebody who just wants to start off, I would recommend getting one of those, $300 printers on Amazon or maybe less, and just kind of getting your feet wet, because it can be very frustrating and it could be a lot of work. It's fun when you're learning it and you're in a camp like mine for kids, but when you don't have that and you're not able to pay to get those type of classes, it's very frustrating because there's so many dynamics to the 3D print itself. And then you have to use what's called Cura, and there are others, but it's basically the program that talks to the printer. If you don't know the program itself and then the CAD portion of it, it could be a little frustrating. Now, they've made it really easy if you want to get into the more expensive printers. Like now you're looking at $500 to $1,500. You've got your Prusas, your Lulzbots, and these printers are designed for people who just want to just print it out. So to answer your question, if you've got what it takes and you've got a little bit of patience and you're willing to deal with some frustration, you can get a really nice deal on a printer for about $300 and get what you need out of it. But if you really want to get flowing and you think you can afford somewhere between $500 and $1,000, I would recommend getting like a Lulzbot, because it's kind of a load the file and then print on the button kind of.
So the more expensive the tool, it does more for you, more on the design. You don't have to know
Right,
as much. Is
kind
that
of.
the
If you
deal?
think about it this way, they usually come with like a screen on it. And if you can understand the basics of files like CAD
Oh,
and STL, if you understand what that looks like, then you can modify it and then you can 3D print it. But when you get into the lower end printers, you can't really see the screen. There's no screen. So you're on the computer. And so you're trying to figure out what the settings are. And it could be a little frustrating.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But really, anybody, I
Wow.
recommend anybody who has $500 laying around, make the investment, because, back when I started it, you can get one for under $1,500. Now they're making them kind of ship
Mm-hmm.
and build yourself. And for $500, I can tell you all the things you can print out in your house. You'd be amazed. I just printed I 3D printed a phone stand because I was like, I'm tired of holding my phone during games. So, what might cost somebody a $15 to $20 tripod, I could 3D print it for free. You get a roll of filament that costs $20, and you could print out probably about 500 small things, maybe between the sizes of 6 inches to 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 Well, I am going to shift gears just a little bit here, and we are going to have to start wrapping up at some point, but talk about the business aspect of being an entrepreneur. So this technology thing, core competency, a gift, you know how to run with technology. How did you learn how to do the business side of things?
That's a good question. I met a woman named Allison Lopez. So I used to work for a different company. Things didn't work out, but I gave them a lot of my time and my energy while I was developing their services and training the people that were involved working for them. And during that time is when I learned a little bit about the business side of technology and being a professor of it. So that's when I was kind of understanding like the structure of what you should have in place, procedures, policies, training employees, all of that. And then I had to leave the company. Things didn't work out, but I had already started doing my own thing prior. So I had this woman get in touch with me, Allison Lopez, during that time. And she said to me, you should start your own thing. And at the time, I was working for 5 other men. Didn't work out. Um, and she said, why don't you do exactly what you were doing before and continue running your business as a woman and have a woman owned business, and I'll help you, and it'll be really powerful. You know, you'll be an influence for a lot of young girls who are afraid to be in that sector. And this was almost 6, 7 years ago. So even back then, the numbers were very low for having women in technology. So she was all about the women empowering part of it. And so she walked me
Mm-hmm.
through what it was like to have a business. Now, Allison Lopez is one of my favorite people in the world, but she's real aggressive when it comes to business. She was raised in a family, in a lineage of business owners. Her father and grandfather both owned very big companies here in America that were operating in China and other parts of the world. So she knows business pretty well. And so she kind of walked me through, sorry about that. She kind of walked me through a lot of um, the things I needed to know in terms of, hey, this is how you start a business. This is how you run a business. Here's some logistics you need to have in place. This is how you do sales, and this is how gain some marketing dollars. So on and so forth. So she really helped me, and was a big mentor for me. And then from there, she introduced me to some really big power players over at Office Depot, and then they helped me grow because I was really the tech nerd. I wasn't really looking to make a business out of this, but when Office Depot picked me up, the Office Depot Foundation, to teach them project management tools, I knew I had something pretty special. And they were just
Mm-hmm.
amazing women who were all about women empowerment. And you're the only technology girl we know, and we're gonna make you famous. And I was like, whatever. I just want to teach tech. So I didn't really care too much about it. Allison and I, and she'll tell you, she was amazing. We had our tension here and there because, again, I was like, I don't want to do all that. I just want to go to someone's house and help them learn. And I'm glad that she pushed me because here I am today, on a podcast talking about my company and my entrepreneurship. So she kind of pushed me in that direction. And then I thought, it is pretty empowering as a woman, a minority at that, to be a successful business owner in a country full of white males that are older who are running businesses, corporate America, so to speak. And here I am, in my early 30s, running a business and being a woman, and doing a pretty good job at it. And then on top of it, I'm a techie and a nerd. That's crazy. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got into the whole thing. So I'm really thankful for people like Allison and Mary Wong, who used to work at the foundation to that helped me in my career and pushed me there. And then I had the
Yeah.
normal, cheerleaders like my parents, who are amazing, my sisters. I've had friends throughout my career who've helped me a lot in confidence. Some may think I'm confident now, but when I started this, I was not confident. I mean, I was walking into people's houses, not knowing what I'm getting myself into, and then telling them how to run their technology, not really knowing a lot about it. So it was really scary for me too. So I really thank a lot of my clients because they were the ones that pushed me in that direction too. You really need a second person. You can't be the only one doing this. Okay, well, I'll send them over to you. No, 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 don't send them to me. But I mean your other clients. No.
Yeah, your other clients, not to me.
Yeah, not me,
I love
the
that.
new ones. I'm like, okay, so basically what I'm hearing is I need to hire someone else so you can continue using me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a lot of support, Kathy. So it's been great, kind of running, starting off the ground and running it.
Well, thank you for sharing that because I think that's very common for a lot of entrepreneurs is that there's a thing we love to do. And then how do you turn that into a business? And there is a whole business element in that. It's the selling, it's the invoicing, the relationship management and building relationships and service and delivery. And then you start expanding when it's not just you, right? Then that adds another level of complexity and leadership and management and all of that. So I'm always fascinated about people's stories, as you know, on, how did you get there? And so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. And I would encourage,
And
what I want to say really quickly is if you're a young girl and you're I'm sure there's so many things as women we think already, right? And we're like like Whitney Cummings said, it's like we have this mean monster in us. You can't do it. You're fat, you're ugly. And don't let that stuff get to you, because you're beautiful and you're wonderful just the way you are. And I encourage any woman who is looking to be an entrepreneur, especially in technology, to do it. Because if you don't try, you next thing you know, you're working for a company that you don't really love, and you don't really love what you do. You might as well give it a shot. And the worst that could happen really is you don't quite make it at that. You fail and you start over.
And you find something
Yeah.
else.
And it could be very intimidating when you're in a technology field where it's mostly males, and you're the only girl. You hear the stories of how this stuff works, and it is still dominated by mostly males. And I encourage women to get into it, because the most creative things I've seen come from some of my younger girls in the 3D printing. I mean, they're so loving and caring. They want to help people. And so I'm like, you need to be part of NASA. Like, so, I just want to see that happen more. And men too. I want it to be an equal playing ground for everyone. So I encourage people to try doing whatever it is they love to do, whether it's piano or technology, or in your case, you're an artist to some degree, telling stories. Do it. You never know what could happen. And now with everything being virtual, we can try anything from home, right?
Yeah. Well, and you can learn so much at home. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the things that I've taught myself just by going to YouTube, or, getting so far on YouTube and then calling you and asking for your help. And then, having someone who can walk you through it, but also, that you can read stuff and you can figure it out.
You're more
So,
tech savvy than you think, Kathy.
oh, well, thank you. Yeah, again, sometimes you don't know what you bring to the table until you start working with other people, and you're like, "Oh, you didn't know that? How did I know that? I just kind of knew that." So, well, Fallon, I could probably talk to you all afternoon, but we do have to wrap up. Is there anything else that you would like to comment on that I
I
haven't
think
asked
we
you?
kind of covered everything. I do want to share one thing that I think is pretty cool for everyone right now. It's even helped me. It's called 21 Days of Abundance. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's pretty great time to be thankful for what we have. I'm thankful for TeachGeek, and I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for the fact that I still have a job, and that I have a family. So I think it's a good time to be thankful. And I thank you, Kathy, for letting me come on the show and be part of your awesome podcast.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much. And certainly, I love having you on the show. I love highlighting my friends and spotlighting you guys. And you are, you're amazing in what you do. You've helped me so much with my business, and you're helping the world. And now, and you're helping 8 to 12-year-olds learn technology. I just think that's so cool.
Thank you.
So,
And thank you for helping me with our family stuff that I probably would just keep on iCloud if it wasn't for you. I told you, and you helped me tell a really good story of me and my family. So thank you.
well, you're welcome. And on that note, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. And listeners, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe below. And if you have any questions for me or for Fallon, for TeachGeek, or for her your Geek Academy, what's your academy called?
It's TeachGeek Academy.
TeachGeek Academy. If questions for Fallon, you can post that on my website. I'll get you in touch with her. I'll also post her links on my website so you can reach out to her directly. So, and again, subscribe so you can be alerted and notified of new interviews as they are published. So on that note, stay safe, stay well, and have a great day. Thank you.